AI-generated text and AI-generated code are mostly garbage, and yet I use them a lot. If you are a developer who do not use AI yet, or you use it in a very generic way, like talking to a chat, you want to start using it, you're not sure how to use it in a productive way, then this video is for you, because I'm going to share a few actionable things that you can do pretty much today to try to incorporate more AI in your work and see if it actually brings any value or it's still producing garbage. This video is a part of the series that I'm trying to build, and in the first episode we're going to be talking how to incorporate AI into our coding life if you have not done it yet. The second episode is meant for people who are already using AI, but they want to make it more reliable, more repeatable, and more customized to their needs. And in episode number 3, I want to talk to people who are using AI a lot in the workflow already, and they also see some problems that I'm also struggling with, and will try to find a solution to them. Okay, let's paint a picture. You are an engineer. You want to use AI in your work, maybe because everybody else is doing it, or because you think it might make you productive, but whatever the reason is, you open the terminal, you install Claude Code or any other tool, you write a prompt to help you with your feature or a bug, and then you get the results and you're just frustrated because the results are really not that great. AI is hallucinating and you just spend more time than you would have fixing it manually. As I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'm not extremely happy with the state of AI right now. I'm really hoping that it's going to improve more, because all of the hacks are just making it more bearable. And in fact, this one thing can reduce the frustration a lot already, is to make AI ask you questions. There is a very popular skill called Grill Me that you can try to use. And the core idea of the skill is that you make AI ask you more and more questions until it has enough context to go on. I've heard this once and I really like this analogy, that you're asking AI to do something in your code base and it starts with a clean slate. Like you would get a developer out on the street and ask them to do something in your code base while they don't have any context over the code base or a feature. So yeah, it's not really fair to your AI. And of course, some of the questions are going to be extremely dumb. That's just the price we pay for it. But in a way, just hearing these questions and answering these questions, it also helps you refine the requirements for yourself, which is also not a waste of time. I have to say, I do not use the exact skill a lot because I like to customize everything to my own needs, but I just have this habit of making AI ask questions to get the context. I usually mention it in the end of the prompt. And the second thing is extremely familiar to anybody who's working with AI a lot. I know that you know that it would help. I also know that you're probably not doing it, because it takes time and energy to create this example, because you would actually have to process the information and do a part of the work yourself manually. But I find that it's almost always worth it. Every time I ask AI to create a visualization, to create a diagram, to describe the alternatives to the solution that we are looking at, it always pays out to take one of the items and just structure the format that you want AI to give you back, because it makes you way less frustrated with the results. And to add to this section about how we are using AI, I want to add the tooling. And the example that I like to give is an iPad, because for me, without a pencil or a keyboard, it's pretty much a glorified device to watch videos. It's not as useful or productive or part of any routine, it's just a screen. But with the accessories and devices, it can become quite powerful, and AI is not an exception. Some of the tooling is built in, like a web search or visualizations or access to file system. Some of the AI clients have it, like Claude Code. But what makes AI really powerful is the ability to add your own tooling, and you can do it by using MCP servers or connecting CLIs, or even using plain APIs if you don't mind sharing your token with AI, which I do mind. And connecting your tooling for messaging, documentation, for logs can give AI access to more data, which can give it more context, which give it better results, and it's just easier to use. Okay, moving on to actually using AI in your daily life, from how to what. And the first thing that you want to do, you want to get familiar with Git worktrees. I use Git worktrees quite a lot. As we'll discuss later in the video, I do really prefer having a hands-on approach and staying and working together with AI on my current task, but some of the tasks I can prematurely delegate. So AI would do the research and propose some solutions for me, but I don't want it to happen in my current repository because I am working there. So I create a Git work tree for the tasks that I can potentially delegate to AI. And when I'm done with my main task, I take these work trees and start working on them. And as soon as I'm done with my task, I am creating a PR, and I do use AI for that because it basically goes over a checklist for me that is not very difficult to do, but it's kind of repetitive and it takes a lot of time. So I have this create PR skill that checks that the right branch is created, the ticket is added, that the test coverage is there, all the labels are added, all the descriptions and titles are according to the templates in the way that I like them. The majority of the skill are not exactly instructions, they are executable scripts, because I don't like AI to think too much. I just wanted to execute and only make decisions where I cannot really automate it in an old way. But we're going to be talking about it in episode 2, so don't forget to subscribe if you're waiting for that. After the PR is created, I am asking AI to start a loop and babysit my PR. I actually call this skill that's called babysit PR, and then every minute or 5 minutes or however long your pipeline takes, it will fetch the pipeline results for me, see if something is failing, and if it is, try to figure out what is the reason and maybe even suggest a fix for me. I do find that when everything is working as expected, then create PR and babysit PR skills are freeing up a lot of focus time for me, so I can forget about it and completely focus on task at hand. But it doesn't work ideally every time, which is partially a question of tuning up my setup and partially a question of constant updates, whether it is a model or a harness, but it changes the way my skill executes. And that's one of the reasons I keep everything in script, everything that I can anyway. And yet another thing that you can do with your PRs is to make AI read a comments and maybe even suggest fixes. And I feel like it takes some of the emotions out of the equation. If you have been in the industry long enough, you can probably remember at least one of these heated discussions in the PR when somebody had an opinion and somebody else had another opinion and they were just arguing about something that's not even important. It doesn't really happen very often, but I do feel like AI kind of takes the emotions out of the equation there and just helps to proceed faster. But please, I beg you, don't make your AI respond to comments unless it's a comment that says fixed. I cannot read AI generated comments in PRs. I cannot. You may have noticed that I did not mention reviewing PRs and reviewing the code, and this is because I find it extremely complicated and it's not really working well all of the times, and that's why this topic is for part 3. But I do have one more tool that I wanted to include in the episode number 1 because this is something you have to use. Well, you don't have to, but it is really fun to use when you're just starting to use AI in your coding and workflow. And I mentioned it so many times in my newsletter because I genuinely love it, and this is voice control. And don't get me wrong, writing down your prompt still has a lot of value because you're providing a very detailed and precise context. But when you need to provide more context, voice control is just so much easier when you need to give a lot of information, including all of the minor details and edge cases. I don't really use built-in voice input unless I'm on my phone. I use a free version of Spokenly that has a free downloadable local model, so your data is not sent everywhere. And I am very happy with how it works. It's not sponsored, I use it for free, and I just find it a really cool tool. It's really important to notice that your setup will change over time. If you look at my monthly newsletters, you'll see that I have this little AI section, and every time I'm mentioning something new, every time something is changing. And just because your setup is not working or you have to change it very often, it doesn't mean that you cannot build skills and workflows that work. It's mostly because the whole tooling is pretty new and there are a lot of things that we're not consciously registering yet. For example, how easy it is to change your skill or workflow. Do you want to change it when you notice that changes should be made? How easy it is to invoke it, or do you even forget that you have it? But over time, the most efficient ones will stay, and you will notice what works for you and what doesn't. I am in no way an authority on AI coding and workflows. I use it very moderately, and I'm trying to enhance my pre-existing workflows as an engineer because they were not bad at all, rather than completely replacing the way that I work. And I think it's giving me pretty good results so far. But I think that the best thing you can do if you're just starting out with adding more AI into your regular workflows is to just listen to other people doing that. see how they do things, and decide for yourself what works and what doesn't, to try out different things and make your own decisions. And if you're interested in hearing more about this topic, I'm gonna see you in episode 2, where we're gonna discuss how to make skills more efficient and why do I care about using as few tokens as possible. And hint, it's not because of the cost. Hopefully I will see you in that video, and till that time, bye!